Hi there. I'm Joe Dudek, president and founder of Keyhole Marketing.
And I'm Shannon Jarek. I work for Keyhole as the assistant brand manager.
And this is Metaphorically Speaking, a podcast that explores the mysterious side of marketing.
Welcome to Metaphorically Speaking. For this conversation, we got to chat with doctors Josh and Taylor Logan from True North Chiropractic in Colorado Springs, along with their 3-month-old baby occasionally.
Definitely some cooing or gurgling or something.
Right. And it's not Joe, so.
Not for the early part. If there's some in the latter part, the baby was asleep. That might have been me in the back.
Oh gosh. Moving on. Joe, tell me what inspired you to connect with this couple. What about chiropractics what was interesting to you?
Well, yeah, just chiropractics in general. I've been pretty ignorant on the whole profession. I think all I ever really knew about it was just coworkers in the past who, had a tight back or neck was out of whack, and they would just get a chiropractic appointment and, just seem to go every week and no ending to the procedure. And that's kind of always been my impression of chiropractic care. But on their social media, they do a really good job of educating people about, the whole profession and how it's bigger than just, a tight back or a sore neck. And they certainly can do those things and correct those types of pains. And I think most of their patients come through the door with that, but then they're able to educate them on the many holistic benefits of chiropractic care and how really the whole nervous system controls so many facets of the body. Mm-hmm. And we talk a little bit about the nervous system. Certainly for me, it was in some sort of dumbed down fashion so I could make sense of it. But
yes, listen on to get the scientific expert
for their knowledge. Yeah. But it was really interesting, certainly as communicators, the point of communication between the brain and the spinal cord, this whole nervous system working together and how the body can work well when the communication's running well. I can certainly benefit, or I can relate to that in right. The world we live in for sure.
Yeah, well, and it's amazing. Like you said, it's not often just back and neck, and people don't realize that until they go in. This communication is off, and so many other problems are happening that they don't even realize is connected to, that disruption in the nervous system.
Exactly.
So super interesting.
They even talk a little bit about some of the miraculous things that I don't know if miraculous is the right word, but just kind of like surprising things that they treat in their office,
Right.
Again, it goes beyond just some joint pain. And that was probably some of the most interesting things that they shared in the interview, is just some treatments that they've offered that might get people to think bigger and broader than they've thought about chiropractic care in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. I know for myself, I was encouraged, not that I could get myself there, but when I was little, my mom brought me to the chiropractor because I had severe facial and sinus issues. And of course I knew nothing when I was 5, but
yeah.
That was what they recommended at that point. And I just had never thought that would be something that chiropractic care could alleviate, or fix. And, my boyfriend had severe migraines, and he went to a chiropractor and immediately saw healing from that. So super fascinating.
Well, that's most fascinating because they both have a really powerful story of how they got into chiropractic care and their health being benefited through the treatment. So I think that's early part in the conversation. And I think that's super fascinating to hear how they have both personally benefited from the treatment, of course, inspiring them to pass that along to other people. So
definitely. Yeah. And they talk about how it's so important that once you take care of your body and even regain some of that physical ability that you might not have had before, you're able to then go out and serve your family better, your community better, be a better employee, at your place of work. And I love how that kind of purpose and mission is just driven through their company and through what they do. It's so much more, again, like you said, than just crack my back or adjust my spine. It's how can I be my best self and then contribute that to the world around me.
Yeah, I think that's definitely leaves a powerful message for you to certainly try to do your best to sustain your own health and take care of yourself, but then thinking with a stronger self, how can I give more back to the community?
Definitely. Well, we hope you enjoyed this conversation with Doctors Josh and Taylor. And of course, we would love to hear from you at hi@keyholemarketing.us.
Well, this is the first time for sure I've interviewed 3 people, 2 adults and 1 3-month-old. So I'm sure it'll go well. She's doing great so far, so it'll be awesome. So thanks so much for joining us. Thanks so much for joining me. The first 2 interviews I've done so far here have been with people who are like rare breeds of Colorado Springs natives. Do you guys keep that trend going, or where are you guys from originally?
50% here, I guess. I was born in Denver, resided in Aurora, Colorado for about 7 years, and then my family ended up leaving the state of Colorado to Florida, and most of my life grew up there, but we knew we wanted to get back here to Colorado, just being a native here, but not fully having some deep roots here yet. But that's kind of where I came from. My wife has a little bit of a different story, though.
Yeah, I lived all over the place growing up. I was born in Iowa, lived in Nebraska, a couple different cities, South Carolina, North Carolina, Nashville, so all over the place growing up. But spent a lot of time when we lived in Nebraska in Colorado, so really loved it. Went to chiropractic school in Florida, liked the ocean, but it was way too hot for us to stay. So knowing he was from Colorado, and really we fell in love with the mountains and just the weather and the atmosphere here. We just knew this is where we wanted to lay down roots.
Yeah. Were you in a military family? Is that
no? My parents are actually chiropractors, but my dad is just a little restless. He needed to keep moving on. So yeah,
that's awesome. I'm kind of the same way. I can relate to that for sure. My wife keeps me grounded a little bit. Otherwise, we'd be packing up, I'm sure, every year.
Yeah.
There's always someone in a relationship that does that.
Yeah,
so
that's always good. How about brothers, sisters for the 2 of you? Are you single or solo kids?
I have a younger sister.
Okay.
And she actually helps with us in the practice as well.
Okay.
So it really is a family practice. And
I am one of 7.
Yeah.
So
Gosh.
I am the second oldest. I have the youngest is 12, so pretty big age gap there.
Currently is 12.
Yeah, she's currently 12.
Okay.
But one of my sisters actually also works in the practice with us, so that's really cool.
Yeah, that is cool. Could be cool. I guess it depends on how well you get along with your siblings.
Definitely,
right?
Yeah.
Because I thought about that, and I was thinking, who could I possibly work with that I could get along with?
Yeah.
Well, they haven't quit yet.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, there's probably only 2 of my 6 siblings that I would get along with and work. Hopefully they don't listen to this.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly. We're going to talk about that later. I'm sure. Yeah, I've got 7 siblings too.
Oh, wow, awesome.
Kind of a hodgepodge of my dad was married before, my mom was married before, so they had kids in their first marriage, and then my sister and I were the youngest from their marriage, and I'm the youngest of all of them.
Okay, wow.
But quite an age gap between the oldest to me, so I can relate to that big family.
Yeah.
But I don't know if anybody on that list I could seem to work with on a regular basis. It's probably more me than it is them.
Yeah.
How would you describe your childhoods? You moved around a lot. How was that? Was that
Honestly, it was kind of just what we did. Mm-hmm. So, and now looking back at it, I'm super grateful that I was never scared of change and always could adapt really well. And so when I was looking at college, I wasn't scared to go somewhere far. And when we were looking at where we were going to lay down for our office, it didn't really matter to me that there wasn't family or familiarity there. Yeah. So I was thankful for it looking back. And like I said, growing up, it's just kind of what we knew. So I didn't really question it either growing it up.
Was that tough at all to maybe not get deep friendships with people for too long?
A little bit here and there. I do remember sometimes kind of around that 12, 13 age where being like it was the end of the world because we were leaving our friends, Yeah. But you moved on to the next place, you made friends, and it was good. And then when you left that place, you're like, oh, I don't want to leave now. So,
For sure,
it was
for
good.
sure. How about you, Josh?
Yeah, a little bit different. When we moved from Colorado to Florida, basically stayed in the same city for most of my childhood until I went into undergraduate school at the University of Florida and then chiropractic school over in Daytona. Mm-hmm. But we were able to lay down some pretty strong roots. Whenever we had breaks, we would go back to Florida or Melbourne, where I grew up, and had a great church family there, a lot of great, really strong relationships. So it was kind of a challenge, actually, when my wife, Taylor, was the one pushing us to go over to Colorado.
Yeah, you were good with Florida.
I was good with Florida. I was looking at other areas, too. I just remember the first time we got off the plane at Denver, it had been so long since I went back to Colorado. Colorado, and everything looked dead, and I couldn't even see the mountains, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I really want to come here. And then as we're traveling down I-25, going through Castle Rock, where just everything opens up, you see Pikes Peak, you start seeing actually trees, and totally opened up my eyes to like, all right, I could see myself living here.
Yeah. Did you moved at 7, I think you said?
Yeah, I went 7 when I moved from Aurora to Florida.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. How was that? Do you remember that move at all, or was
not
that
too much? I really missed the snow. I do remember that, and so Florida, you don't get too much snow ever.
For sure.
And so it was good to get back to Colorado and actually have our first snow here, and it just felt like home.
Yeah. We moved out here. We have a 6-year-old. Well, I guess he was 5 at the time, so he's 6 now. But I always wonder that too. Like we talk a lot. Like, how much do you remember from Indiana? Not much. You know, little memories here and there. So it was just kind of at that age. I don't know how much we'll go back and see grandma and grandpa and stuff. But
and how many kids do you have?
We have just him. Yeah, just the one.
Okay.
Yeah. So
awesome.
he's pretty much up for anything. So he's up for another adventure. But yeah, it's just funny sometimes where you were just there like a year or so ago and he doesn't remember some stuff. You're like, do you remember anything of that? I thought they were amazing memories for us. But what about like growing up? Did you have any entrepreneurial influences? Were your parents entrepreneurs? Did you have other influences, mentors or anything like that? Where you maybe just put something in the back of your head, like I want to start a business at the time when you were kids?
Yeah, specifically for me, really had no entrepreneurial spirit growing up. Both my parents had very stable jobs. My mom was the one that basically was more the breadwinner in the family. My dad, he kind of jumped around from different positions. He was more the entrepreneurial spirit than my my mom. He did a lot of different types of like lawn maintenance work in Florida. I mean, all the rain, it definitely needed that, and so he was helping out all throughout the city with that. So that kind of was a little bit of the influence for me, but as we kind of went through chiropractic school, that's where it really started to hit home of just really having that mindset of, hey, I can do some big things through chiropractic here, but then also when you start seeing the amount of student loans coming through too, realizing there's not much that you can do when you do get out and work under another person too. It becomes a very challenging, and a big thing for us is we just want to not have that financial burden too, and so that really definitely pushed us a little bit more. But then also having our own, I mean, just the mission and the vision that we had was something that we knew we could only do that by opening up our own practice, and that really is what drove us to create True North.
How about you?
So definitely entrepreneurial. My parents probably over the years have opened 4 or 5 of their own offices, moving a lot. They would open. My dad was also a professor, so he taught at a couple chiropractic schools, and definitely I worked in my parents' office growing up a little bit, so I had a lot of that influence. And so opening a practice was definitely not, something very far-fetched for me. That's just kind of, again, what I saw and what was modeled for me growing up.
Yeah, I just always find that interesting because I'm one of those people who didn't think entrepreneurship until, I'd done corporate America stuff for years, and then once I sort of got a nibble of it, I can't go back to anything else. But not because I saw my dad doing it or mom doing it. They were always doing traditional jobs. But it's just always interesting to find those people who either saw it coming down the road or people like me who never even envisioned it for.
So what was I just want to know kind of what was the turning point for you of realizing, hey, I've been in corporate America where a lot of times it's a very comfortable position for a lot of people to realize, hey, I'm going to step out and go to this route.
Well, I had a pretty bad job my last one. I stayed there for about a year. I think I knew it was bad about 10 minutes into the job. I'd left another job. I'd been there 5 years, and I knew they were going to get bought out by another company, so I wanted to get ahead of that. Went to this other job where they had kind of promised me a lot of things, like, we'll give you this, and here's this benefit, and everything sounded great. It was a manufacturing company that said they wanted to be more progressive in their marketing, and then didn't really seem to like they wanted to do that once I got there. So stayed for about a year, and then thought I'd just get another job after that at another company, and then just realized, like, I kind of like working for myself out of my house and getting dressed sometimes, not getting dressed other times, like just the flexibility. Yeah. I also loved working around town, meeting other people at different coffee shops. And I'd experienced that a little bit in some networking things that I had gone to towards the end, but I just really loved forging new relationships and that kind of stuff in that sort of world. So it was just sort of so I got the nibble, almost in a waiting time, to kind of get the next job, being selective so I didn't get another bad job right away. But yeah, that was it. And now we've talked many times over the years, because that was it'll be 8 years ago this year that, and it's hard to imagine going back. We've talked about it financially. If we had to do that, certainly we would be able to do that. But otherwise, it's just hard for me to imagine I've actually gone to Alpha's Complex to meet with clients, and it's just I get just weird things up and down my spine. Yeah, exactly. I gotta get out of here. So break out in a rash.
Gosh.
So you met in Florida. In college?
Chiropractic school.
Chiropractic school. Okay, so this was post undergrad.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where was that at? That was at the University of Florida, correct?
So did my undergrad at the University of Florida.
Okay.
Taylor did it over at Lipscomb University in Tennessee, Nashville, and so we both somehow decided to go to Palmer College of Chiropractic in Daytona, technically Port Orange, and that's officially where we met.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Incidentally, is that Palmer sort of the founder?
It's a fountainhead is what they call it. But so the original, it was Dr. Dee and BJ Palmer. Those are the ones you hear about. But they founded the school in Iowa, which is actually where my parents went to school. They have a sister school in Florida and then California.
Okay. And then talk a little bit about, talk about how you guys met. I mean, you obviously were in school, but what was the attraction?
Yeah.
How did you guys spot each other, those types of things?
Yeah, so we were friends for 2 years, literally no future in sight at all, of course, no way.
Yeah.
I was actually... a guy in my class that I was really good friends with went to undergrad with him. And so when he came before he came to chiropractic school, he came and visited him, and we always hung out at our apartment. So I met him there. He was dating somebody else. Stayed in that relationship for quite a while, and we were just really good friends. We were in the same Bible study, different groups on campus, things like that. And so our close friend circle was all together.
Yeah.
So definitely we're very close friends for a long time. But it was 3 months before I actually was leaving to start my internship in Alabama that we, of course, decided that this may be a good idea. So, we started dating. I moved to Alabama, was there for a year, and we got engaged during that time and married during that time. We were really only together in the same, city for about 3 months.
While we were dating.
Yeah.
So it kind of moved quickly. But,
yeah, it did.
But at the same time, you built a long relationship.
Yeah, it moved pretty fast. We were engaged for about dating for about 6 months, engaged for about 7. So a little over a year from the time we started dating till we were married. But again, we had been really close friends for about 2 years. So there was a lot of trust there already. Yeah. We knew each other on a deeper level. It wasn't like we were trying to figure each other out or figure out if this person is trustworthy or good. So we had a pretty good foundation, and I think that helped a lot.
Was the chiropractic connection a good thing for the relationship? Did it not matter at all? Was there a sense of where you're thinking, are we going to should we both be doing the exact same thing, or should we find somebody who has a different interest altogether?
Yeah, especially going through chiropractic schools, there's so many different, just even philosophies and techniques when it even comes to even practicing it. And thankfully, one of the things that really drew us together too is we were practicing the same technique. Something that when you go into chiropractic school, there's all these different techniques. Some are very easier compared to others, and we really drew towards the more complicated ones. Just a lot more analysis when it comes to that. And so when it came to us kind of coming together and realizing, hey, we kind of like each other here, but then we also are practicing and studying this technique that we can consistently keep growing upon each other with that too. And then also just finding out, hey, we have the same mission and vision with kind of what we want to do too. And
on a personal level too.
Exactly. And so that really made things pretty easy. Like, hey, this is kind of a no-brainer. Let's do this together.
Yeah.
And it made obviously there's been challenges along the way with just the little things, but overall the big picture, it made it pretty obvious. Like, hey, this is a great idea too.
Yeah. What was your attraction to chiropractic care to begin with? Talk through those stories a little bit.
Yeah, I honestly knew nothing about chiropractic before diving headfirst into it. Honestly, all I knew was just kind of the misconceptions of it. I don't know if you ever watched the show 2.5 Men, where the brother of Charlie Sheen basically all he got trashed upon was his profession, and it's like, I don't know about this, and so it was going towards just other different types of healthcare professions, whether that's physical therapy, medical doctor, PA, and honestly had a pretty significant illness in undergrad, developed pneumonia, had a lot of allergy, asthma problems after that, developed really severe migraines, and nothing was really helping me at all throughout the process of that, and was getting kind of frustrated, like, why is this not helping? I was a big athlete too, and because of the asthma, I was not able to do things as well, and my buddy, who we were in a Bible study together, he invited me to come to this conference, and completely opened my eyes to chiropractic and how it was so focused more on the nervous system compared to just muscle and bone and pain and all of that, and hearing just the testimonials of people literally getting their lives back, it totally opened my eyes to that, and jumped headfirst into that. Had my own chiropractic healing journey of breathing issues completely going away, migraines completely going away, and that really developed just the huge passion for what I have now it.
That's awesome. You had a personal transformation from
absolutely. And then my wife, I mean, she has a life-changing story for that too. So
so both my parents are chiropractors, like we talked about. So that's obviously what I grew up around. But when I was born, about 4 hours later, I actually stopped breathing. And my parents were at home, actually had a home birth with a midwife, and resuscitation was not working, turned completely black and blue. My dad is fresh out of chiropractic school at this point. All he knows to do is check the spine, right? So he checked my spine. The very top bone in my neck, called the atlas, was misaligned. And the brainstem actually runs right through there, which has some respiratory control centers in it. So he adjusted that, and immediately I started breathing. So it really did save my life.
Yes.
And then just... originally, when I was young, I always said I wanted to be a chiropractor. I have a picture from when I was in first grade, and it says, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I drew myself adjusting somebody and said I wanted to be a chiropractor. Back then, it was because it was cool, because that's what my parents did.
For sure, yeah.
Right? But just growing up in their office and seeing just the huge, life transformations happening from the people that were walking through the doors, I just really was drawn to that and the holistic side of it, and really just couldn't imagine myself doing anything else.
Yeah. I mean, because you can imagine that some kids would watch their parents and want to do something completely different, but just your own personal connection to it, and like you said, those deep stories of transformation. Other than just another patient come through the door, another resource of money, you actually saw lives being altered and changed.
Yeah, it was pretty powerful.
That's really cool. You had talked a little bit about the different practices part. I think that's how you said it, of chiropractic. And I guess my limited research by the way, this is going to be awesome to have this cuckooing in the background. Seriously, it's going to be awesome. Probably the best podcast. I have a little bit of background noise here. It's going to be great. I guess my limited view, it was these two paths of musculoskeletal and wellness. Is those kind of like the two paths? Are there more different sectors in there that one travels down in chiropractic care? Are those too broad, maybe?
I would say that's pretty. You could probably put it in those two little categories. Yeah, I would say.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, what was, assuming? I guess again, I'm now going to assume that you guys are in more the wellness path of those that goes beyond just sort of like back adjustments that most people assume about chiropractic care. What was it about that? You've kind of alluded a little bit with your parents and seen some of those life transformations. What was it about that path that maybe was more appealing to you than some of the other routes you might go with chiropractic care?
Yeah, I think with chiropractic, I think you pretty much hit on the hand. There's definitely a very preventative side focused on making your body just function better, and then there's a side that's very pain focus on, getting rid of back pain, neck pain. And the thing about it is both of them we do very well at, right? But there's that side, the prevention side, that a lot of people don't really think about.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a part we really try and educate and focus on, and that's something that I was very drawn to, because growing up under chiropractic care since essentially I was born, I never developed a lot of the issues that a lot of people do. And then kind of cool from a sense that Dr. Josh and I can compare ourselves with that, because he didn't grow up with it. And so kind of seeing our childhoods, and, you know, I wouldn't say he was a super sick kid, but he had a lot of health challenges that I never experienced.
Yeah.
And so just knowing, yes, there's some other factors, but knowing that my quality of life was a little bit different growing up than his was, and just knowing that we could help other people live that as well, was super appealing to me.
Yeah. You talked a little bit about this too. Some of the reasons of starting your own practice.
Yeah.
I'm sure there were a lot of obstacles in that path too that might have made other routes more possible. You know, to work underneath somebody else for a while, pay your dues a little bit there. But what was it? Did you actually leave your internships and go straight in to start the practice? Was there a time in between there that you worked for some others? How did that work?
Yeah. So. Specifically for Dr. Taylor here, she graduated about a year ahead of me in schooling. And so a big thing that we were trying to figure out is, should she go out and start the practice and I join her a year in, or have her work under somebody for that time being. And since we both did our internships in Alabama, we had a phenomenal doc over there, and we just decided, hey, learn under this doc, let's get mentored by him for a year. Had a great opportunity to where he outgrew his small space and totally opened up a new space about a mile down the road. And he honestly let us take the whole project with it. Just the architectural drawings, working the general contractors, just handling all of the legality purposes of that too. And so that way we were doing all of that thankfully under his dime and not our own. And being able to understand, like, all right, these are the mistakes we made. Let's make sure we don't do that as we transition over to Colorado. And so we were very, very thankful that we took that route instead, to kind of have a nice little practice run before we opened up our own practice.
Yeah.
The name True North, like, where did that come from? What's the meaning behind that? When did that actually come up in your minds?
Yeah, we came up with that while we were in school.
Oh, okay.
And one of the things that I've seen growing up, and Josh has seen growing up, is just that we've really seen close family members, friends, get into a position where their health has held them back from really fulfilling what they're called to do, and holding them back from serving in the community. Or, you know, when you're sick and broken and, you know, dealing with sickness, you really have to focus on more on yourself. It's really hard to focus on those around you.
For sure.
And so we really felt called to help remove that health barrier so that people could really follow and go after what they're called to do. And so helping people reach their true north.
Gotcha.
And so that's what we feel really called to do, not only just through chiropractic care, but in the community. And so when we were, you know, deciding what we wanted our practice name to be, that really spoke to us.
Hey.
We gotta talk.
Do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah. Exactly what you said with that. And I mean, it's just so prevalent, just seeing so many people being held back by health challenges. And so like Dr. Taylor mentioned, we just really want to help remove those barriers, so people can really fulfill that. Because I think a huge issue right now is a lot of times with families too, and people not being able to just serve their families well. Not only that, but their communities, and due to people focusing so much on their own health challenges. Because when we're able to focus less on ourselves, I mean, that opens up such a huge door to be able to serve the people around us. And so it's been pretty cool to even start seeing that just in the short period of us being open here in Colorado Springs.
Yeah, what year did you guys open up again? Kind of skipped over that.
In July 2018.
2018.
So we've been open a little over a year and a half. It'll be 2 years in July.
Okay. Just as you did that practice run at the other practice before you got your own started, were there some things that you were sort of tagging away of, like, we want to make sure we have these specific things included in the business? Or not that he did it wrong, but just like things that kind of aligned with your brand? Were there some of those things that you said, we've got to have this in our practice when we start this?
I mean, biggest thing was just the community influence that we wanted to have. And not only just within our practice, but outside of the four walls of our practice as well. And I know we got to know each other just through social media. And so we knew we wanted to have a huge social media presence just with education. We want people to know more about their own bodies, to know more about their own potential to heal, because again, knowledge is all potential power. You can use it, learn it, but if you don't apply it, then it's kind of worthless sometimes. And so that was a huge thing we wanted to do. But then again, we just wanted to create such an awesome just culture when it comes to our practice. And so when you walk through our doors, you probably don't even think it's a chiropractic office. It's a whole different feel. It's because again, the white coat syndrome is real when you go into a doctor's office. I've had that experience myself. Blood pressure goes up, and we wanted to create such a warm, just friendly and loving environment into our practice. And the previous office, they did it very well, but we knew that we could add some different elements to it to just create our own feel of the practice here too. And so, hey, sweetie. And plus, we wanted to have our kids in the practice too. And that was something that was super important. We wanted to have family be a part of it. And knowing that we were a husband and wife team, and my sister was going to be joining the practice, and Dr. Taylor's sister was going to be joining us too, we wanted to have a lot of that family aspect of it too.
Yeah, for sure. And kind of going back to what Dr. Josh talked about with education, I don't feel like people make bad health decisions because they want to, or people make decisions based on the knowledge that they have, and they do the best they can. But we also just knew that there's a lot that people aren't being told. We knew there's a lot people aren't being told, or just don't know because it's not how they grew up. It's not the culture they were raised in. And so if we could help just maybe bridge that gap and give them more knowledge and information about, again, better ways their body can heal, and things that they can do to live a better functioning and more fulfilling life, then that was one of the biggest things we wanted to bring to the city.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's a nice segue right into just the chiropractic focus of your business, because I think we've learned more about your business specifically, but I think we've talked about a little bit, there's a lot of misconceptions about chiropractic care, whether from our own lack of education on what it is, or somebody else told us about it and they go get adjustments and that's all we assume that chiropractic care is. So how do you tell people what you do? Like when somebody says, what's your business? I'm sure you could just say we're chiropractors, but I'm sure that that falls short. So how do you typically describe what you do when somebody asks that?
I guess in short is we really optimize the nervous system's function. And so whether that's the nervous system having irritation to it leading to aches and pains that we're experiencing, or that can also be nervous system irritation leading into, let's just say, for me personally, having problems to my lungs, not being able to breathe properly, or a lot of times women with infertility, all those different types of things. And so biggest thing is finding exactly where misaligned segments are causing irritation to the nervous system and removing that to allow people to function properly.
Well, I think also just you said nervous system, and I think that also raises a lot of question marks for people too, because it's language you guys use a lot, but I think
what is that?
Right, because it isn't necessarily, it's not like, it's a vein or something you can just easily just grab and take out, or it's your kidney. I don't know, there's just not a physical part that makes a lot of sense to us. So even help us use some language to help us understand what that is and how that works in the body.
So again, the nervous system is composed of your brain, brainstem, spinal cord, and really all nerves in your body. And so I guess the biggest thing is realizing kind of what it does. And so right now we're breathing. We probably had some food today, and it's digesting right now, and our lungs are breathing, and our brain is sending signals constantly through the brainstem and the spinal cord to those nerves saying, hey, we need to start beating, we need to start breathing, we need to start having this food digest. And so everything in our body is controlled by our brain and spinal cord, and so that is all composed of that nervous system there.
So just the awareness of things do not function on their own. The kidneys do not function in their own way without being told to do so. That's fair. And
a great example of that is, if you remember Christopher Reeves, I know a lot of people might be a little too young now for that, falling off the horse, and he actually fractured the top two bones in his neck, and that totally stopped function or communication from the brain down through the spinal cord through those organs. So he had to be on a ventilator just for his lungs to breathe. He had to be on basically all these machines just to have his heart to beat, just to have his bladder be removed, all of these things. And it wasn't because the heart was having problems or the lungs were having problems. It was because the communication going to it was having problems.
Gotcha.
And so it just shows us how important the nervous system's function is. And that's really what we focus on, because you got to think, if you ever have a light dimmer, you can have that light basically dimmed all the way down and it's working, but it's not to its fullest potential. And so those are things that we are constantly looking at in our practice of how can we turn this light up a little bit more so people can really be expressing their full potential of health, but honestly their full potential of themselves.
Gotcha. So it's kind of a two-part system, though, too, right? So if the signal's going strong, but the part itself is not functioning well, that also needs to be looked at as too. Is that fair? So if the kidney isn't functioning well, then when you look at the kidney as well, it isn't always the message; it's also the body part as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's both ends. So what we really focus on is that message. I would say, like, your specialists, like the gastroenterologist and all your different cardiologists, things like that, they're going to focus more on the actual organs and that symptom maybe. We try and look at it from a global perspective of the body and the nervous system and making sure that communication isn't causing issues.
Can you talk a little bit about that relationship with the others in the medical community? Do they see that as a good partnership? Do you have challenges when you're working with those who are specialists in those arenas to see the value of the nervous system working with these things? Or, I don't know, what's your relationship with that, and maybe generally speaking?
Yeah, kind of all over the place. I mean, we've met with quite a few providers that are 100% involved with what we do. We take care of quite a few doctors in our practice, just because everything we do is very objective based as well. Not a lot of like hoorah type stuff, and
very scientific.
Very scientific, exactly. And so they're able to physically see with their own eyes. All right, these are the changes I'm seeing structurally through X-rays, through thermography scans, all of these things.
It's that validation they need sometimes.
Exactly. And that was for me with growing up with my mom being basically an engineer, and so I needed that to validify really what I'm seeing. But then also, again, I mean, chiropractic hasn't had the best rep oftentimes too, and so there's a lot of providers that really honestly won't even sit down and listen to us too, to let them know, hey, these are things that we can really potentially help with. Just given the chance and us to educate as well. But so it's kind of on both ends too. Yeah.
Where does that bad rap come from? Is there specific moments in time where that happened because of this event or that event, or is it just sort of general marketing of chiropractic care over the years to sort of set a certain tone in people's minds? Oh,
if we go back to the history, it's actually pretty cool. The AMA, American Medical Association, but then also the Chiropractic Association went through a huge lawsuit actually back in the day that actually went all the way up into the Supreme Court. Basically, the AMA was pushing basically what's called quackery to try to get chiropractic out, because if we're looking at the huge flu pandemic back in the day too, a lot of people were actually flocking towards chiropractors to help boost their immune systems, and unfortunately a lot of medical providers were not too happy with a lot of that too. And so the huge lawsuit happened, and chiropractic ended up winning, which was phenomenal. But again, that led it into a lot of that underlying is it really? Yeah, exactly. And so as we've kind of progressed all the way from that,
time gets away from
exactly.
that event.
But then also as more research continues to keep coming out too, it's been cool to see a nice little harmony between the professions.
Yeah. What was the effect of that experience on the consumer, the patient? Did they? You've got those relationships with the other doctors, but are the patients too also sort of misinformed? Do they have their misconceptions from that event that you're having to constantly sort of deal with and educate them as well in that whole arena?
I don't think nowadays, I think it's so far removed from like the general public that there's not a lot of knowledge of that. I think a lot of that is taught through medical school and that history, so a lot of medical providers are aware of that. But I think a lot of it is on us as chiropractors too in the profession, just not educating well, and just not getting it out there. A lot of times as a profession, you'll use the big words that we were talking about, and sometimes you just need to speak to their language and educate well on not just pain, because I think most people know, chiropractors can help with back pain and neck pain. Those are super common, but a lot of them don't know about just the general nervous system function either. Yeah,
for sure. I think that's definitely been my perception, my limited understanding. The people I knew was a guy who had back pain, so he's getting adjustments, and somebody had some neck, tightness, so getting some adjustments. That's all I knew about it. It wasn't until your practice came around, really, that started educating, like, oh, there's a tie-in to what our lifestyle was starting to become. We were getting much more into holistic functional medicine because of our own health journey. And then I realized, this can actually be a part of that experience. Absolutely. And not, another whole other wing to avoid, actually. Yeah. Because I think what was so fascinating to me about the holistic functional thing, which is what you guys are aligned with as well, is just getting to that cause, like exploring that, not just, you're back, let's make a few adjustments, and then of course come back every week and we'll always adjust it and never resolve it. I was like, that doesn't make sense. I want to get the resolve. I want to get the answer. That's why I think I never connected with chiropractic care, because at least my limited experience was, we'll just keep fixing you for short term and then come back and we'll do it again and come back. So your education has certainly broadened my mind in that regard, which has been great.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest things we try and focus on in the office is just what's causing this. You're having this symptom or this underlying issue, but if you look at it, blood pressure isn't there because high blood pressure is not there because you have something wrong with your blood, right? Yeah. It's a side effect of an issue on a deeper level, right? Yeah. And so rather than chasing that symptom and just more putting a Band-Aid over it, trying to get that pain to go away, we want to know what's causing that so that it can be eliminated and we're not just having to do these temporary fixes.
Do you feel like the majority of your patients, or maybe just the community as a whole, are interested in that cause answer, or just fix my problem, just get the pain, go away? We don't have to go digging through all the stuff, or I don't know. What's your general take on? I'm really curious about that, but I also know a lot of people are taking remedies that are quick fixes. They don't really care about the reason for this.
I think now in this kind of age we're in right now, I think it's become a lot more prevalent. People are really being more drawn to more holistic measures versus I think people are starting to realize that throwing medications at it and, is just not the healthiest thing long term. I think people are starting to see that now. And so I do think there is people being at least a lot more open-minded than they used to be about it, and people searching maybe for more answers. And a lot of times it's because they've been through the medical gamut and they found no answers. Yeah. And sometimes it's just because they feel like there's something more. So I would say there is definitely a battle we're fighting from the education aspect. But again, I think, I really feel like there's never been a better time than there is right now to educate people on holistic health and their body's ability to function, because I think people are so much more open to that natural way of healing now.
Yeah, that was our experience too. We'd sort of gone through several doors of not having good answers and just go take this or just do this. This just sort of almost send us on our way, and never really felt right. Then it just led us to we need to start a different path of health, and that's been more of our path the last couple of years of working with those who want to explore the why, and not just here's the what. Here, just take this.
That's awesome.
What are some surprising, we've talked about some of these things, broadening people's minds to think about more than just a back correction or a tight neck? What are some treatments you guys have done? I mean, generally speaking, with no names or anything, but what are some treatments you might have done that have surprised some people? You talked about a few things like your allergies. That was certainly surprising to me, how that was affected by chiropractic care. What are some other things that people come into your office for that listeners might be like, wow, I had no idea chiropractic care even touched on that?
Yeah, and to be totally honest, most people coming in the practice, they're coming in with, say, neck pain, back pain, but as we start throughout care, then they start realizing, hey, I'm having all these secondary issues I had no idea that I was dealing with starting to resolve. For instance, we had a gentleman come in, completely lost vision, peripheral vision in his right eye, and after the first adjustment, his vision was restored, and that was incredible to see that. We've had people with glossopharyngeal neuritis to where they've been through the whole medical profession, just prescribed medications.
Do you know what that is?
No, but I was going to look it up
Super
later.
fancy.
No.
Basically, it's the nerve that helps you be able to swallow. It's going directly to the mouth there, and it's when you're having the neuritis, it's basically inflammation of the nerve, and so it feels like everything's just on fire.
Yeah.
Sends like lightning strikes. So every time this person would swallow and eat and talk, I mean, they couldn't even talk because every time they had that movement, it would send a lightning strike. So have you heard of trigeminal neuralgia? It's
Yeah.
the same thing, but
Okay.
it's like in the tongue, mouth area.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And so, especially when trigeminal, like that's also called the suicide disease too, and so many people unfortunately are suffering for so long. But so we had an individual came in, hadn't eaten in the last 10 days, barely even drank in the last 3, I wanted to say, and we were able to get them back to eating again. But just from like a lot of women just struggling with infertility, being told, hey, you're never going to have a baby, to finally getting pregnant and having a baby and seeing the baby even grow up too has been phenomenal. I mean, migraines, we hear about that all the time. And I mean, we just had a gentleman who the last 12 years been with the Mayo Clinic, just under so many different types of experimental medications due to his migraines. And every single evening he was dealing with it. And now he's finally getting free of his migraines and finally getting off of some of these medications. He finally told us the other day, he's like, I'm finally feeling more like myself. And so really, really cool to see that. Dr. Taylor, do you have any... We can probably go on and on.
Yeah,
It's so cool. But
It was cool. My first patient that I ever saw in the clinic in chiropractic school was an infertility case, and she had, I want to say 5 years plus they'd been trying, and she had, I want to say she had 8 miscarriages. She never carried past like 8 weeks. She lost them all right away.
Yeah.
And they had done everything they could, medical gamut route. I mean, and they just told her, like, you need to look into adoption. It's not physically possible for you. She came in to see me for low back pain, right? And so we did our full assessment. We did a neurological evaluation. We did our postural x-rays, and we had found that she had a fracture when she was growing up that had really caused some major structural issues, causing a lot of irritation in the lower part of her spine, and those nerves are actually going directly to the reproductive organs.
Wow.
So we started to make adjustments, and within 3 months she was pregnant. Super nervous still. She was like, I don't know, she carried the baby completely full term, had no issues. Baby, beautiful, healthy baby girl that we actually had the pleasure of adjusting when she was just a couple days old. So that being the first patient that we ever saw in clinic was just super powerful, and we've had a lot of cases like that since.
It'll validate your degree right away. I think.
Exactly. Make you feel like you're on the right path.
Yeah. Are these treatments just for just general education? Like, do those, for example, that situation right there, is that sort of just one time? It's fixed for life, or there's some continual adjustments that need to be made, or some corrections or checks on that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So it was a lot more often in the beginning, getting that true correction, and then she continued to come to us for maintenance periodically because she still had a lot of stressors in her daily life that, and you got to think about the things that you do all day and the stresses you put your body under, whether you're, an avid athlete or just more of a couch potato, and you're still going to put your body under a lot of stress. And so she did come to us periodically for maintenance care to make sure that she wasn't doing something to affect that. But we were able to get her to a point where we're seeing her far less frequently, which was cool.
Yeah. Do you send... I guess my assumption for this to go really well, there has to be a lifestyle outside of the office to tag team with your treatment too. Is that accurate? You can't just sort of make the adjustments and they go back to their regular life, which could be part of the problem, their lifestyle. They have to make some lifestyle changes as well to make this thing really work well. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, you can't just get an adjustment and then eat McDonald's 24/7 and expect, I'm going to be perfectly healthy after this. And so there's such a huge influence outside of what we do as well, just whether that's the toxins that we might be inducing through food, through our water, even just chemical and emotional stress that so many of us deal with, especially with a lot of the fear that's going on right now in the world today.
Yeah.
I mean, that plays a huge role of influencing the nervous system's function too. And so those are all things that we do look at, but we very much just focus and specialize when it comes to the specific chiropractic adjustment. And if anyone is coming in and we're realizing, hey, we might not be getting the results that we would expect to see at this moment, then we have people that we would refer to as well that make basically those things their life mission, that they pride themselves in and being a master at, and we kind of partner with them alongside that too.
I'm sure there's a range of reasons why the nervous system needs adjustments, needs some corrections. Some of this can be personal injuries like a fracture. Are there things, like you mentioned there, fear that can impact the nervous system to shut some messages down? Is that a fair thing, or is that going too far? I don't know.
So in chiropractic school, you're taught that 3 things can cause a subluxation, which have we talked about what a subluxation
we
is?
haven't, but I know what it is, but
Cool.
you could say it on here. Actually,
So subluxation is when a bone in the spinal column has become misaligned to where it's putting pressure and irritation on the nervous system and affecting its function. And the 3 things that can cause that are, they call it the 3 T's in chiropractic, but it's traumas, thoughts, and toxins. And so, there's very much this belief that even emotional stress, and you guys, I mean, I feel like everybody has seen that. You go through something very emotional and it affects you in a physical way too,
sure,
right?
Yeah.
And so that's definitely a belief that we've seen manifested in people. And so a lot of different things other than just like a physical trauma, but sometimes it's even just what we call a micro trauma, like sitting at a desk all day on a computer in an abnormal posture, right? That may not affect you that day, but doing that for 10 years, what is your spine going to look like after that?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think that's still, no pun intended, mind-blowing how much how powerful the mind is, right? And how the way we, of course, we talked a lot about fear and just in society and just recent events going on, but it's just amazing how those aren't just quick thoughts that go through and then we go on with our life. They just lodge themselves in our body in certain ways and have physical ramifications to that. So it's really amazing. That's something I've been trying to explore recently because I'm the personality who just puts it on my shoulders and carries it and think I'm okay with it, and then eventually my body says, "Oh, you're not actually okay. I'm going to send you some warning signals that you need to stop this."
Right, yeah.
How do you two personally benefit from chiropractic care? Like, you noticed you had some experiences as kids, how it affected you, but then how do you continue to be impacted by chiropractic care on your own level, on your own?
I think one of the biggest things for me was throughout my pregnancies. I mean, one of the things we specialize in and really have a focus in is prenatal care. And so I was adjusted all through my pregnancy, not only for, there's a lot of physical stressors that are causing your body to have to adapt. And so not only just working to keep myself comfortable through that, but also now there's a lot of cool research coming out that's showing that chiropractic care can help reduce labor times and delivery pains by up to 38%, which is awesome. Yeah. And, I had really quick, beautiful, amazing labor and deliveries with both our girls, and I 100% contribute that to chiropractic and making sure that my nervous system was functioning well, but also my pelvis was in proper alignment for that to take place. So, I mean, I could go on and on for that, but I'm so grateful to chiropractic for that throughout the pregnancy and then just our deliveries.
Yeah, even for me, it's a lot more just prevention and maintenance for me right now. I'm not dealing with the symptoms that I experienced in undergrad with like the asthma, the pneumonia, migraines, and all that. But especially just with right now, I'm having a pretty physical job to where we're adjusting quite a bit more people. I'm a taller guy at 6'3", and so I'm looking down a lot of times too, and so that doesn't help my spine too much either. And so thank goodness I married a great chiropractor, and so she's able to take good care of me too, to not only make sure that I'm able to physically keep doing the things that I love to do, but also keeping myself healthy too. I think that's been super important for me.
Yeah, and it's funny because I can't remember. The whole time I've known him, have not seen him ever have to use an inhaler or anything like that. So it's funny to me when he talks about used to have migraines and asthma and all these things. I'm like, that's just a different person than I ever knew, and that's because he was able to see that change through chiropractic care.
Yeah, and not only that, but for our kids. I mean, both of our girls were adjusted 3 hours after they were born, and since then, we haven't dealt with any type of colic, any type of ear infection. I mean, there have been feeding, latching great, sleeping wonderfully as well too. Obviously they're babies too, and so they're not going to be perfect, but they've done so well compared to so many of the little kids that we see in our practice on a daily basis, to where they've just had a lot more traumas, and so they're really having to just get their bodies into that better position too.
Yeah, that's awesome. Just kind of more of like a theological question. We might it ties into chiropractic care, but I think like you have on your website, for example, you say bodies are designed to heal and prosper. Maybe we should just start off with like, what does that mean to you? What does that phrase mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, first thing that comes to my mind is that each individual is fearfully and wonderfully made. I mean, it's amazing seeing two beautiful babies being birthed by my wife and realizing, man, how did this even happen? Like, there has to be some type of designed creator to be able to come with this. And not only that, just fully believing that, hey, our bodies were designed to be prosperous, to heal, to function properly. And I mean, just for us with our faith background too, just seeing, like, when Jesus was here, like, he came to heal and save the lost, and he calls us to do the same. And so just being able to kind of walk alongside that and see kind of the journey, but not only that, but seeing so many lives and being restored, that people felt that they were broken, but then actually starting to realize, hey, I'm not so broken after all. My body is able to heal in amazing ways. And so it's been really cool to see that take place.
And just to be able to give people hope. I mean, so many people unfortunately come through our doors and we're their last resort. They've tried everything, and they've been told time after time again, you have this disease, this is your diagnosis. It becomes their identity. And they've been told that there's no cure for them. You're going to be on this medication for the rest of your life. You're never going to be able to do X, Y, and Z again. And so just being able to have them come through our doors, and even just when we first meet them, giving them hope that, hey, like, that's not your destiny. That's not a label that you have to live by, and that let's just see what we can do to get your body functioning better. We don't fully know each person's capability and what their body's capable of, but we do know that if we can get their nervous system functioning better, their quality of life will be better, And so that's cool to be able to give people that hope and see that change in them right off the bat, because the other side of it is, I would say a huge part of a person's healing is their mental ability to think they can, And so being able to give somebody that hope that their body is capable of more than they've been led on to believe is really huge in the healing process, and we get to see that every day, which is cool.
Yeah, I think the thing, and I totally believe the body heals itself, because I've seen it in my own way, and in small levels of just like your wound being healed by a scab. I mean, it doesn't just continue to bleed. That's a very small example, but I think sometimes the tension I feel sometimes is the body healing itself, and then God having a part in that as well, And so I don't know, did you guys have the same sort of tension that I wouldn't say struggle with, but just a sense of like there's a part where the body is created to do this, but then there's also a part where we pray for people, right? We say, God, heal her, and yet there's a part of the body doing its own thing. So I don't know, there's a little bit of tension I sometimes feel in personally. Do you guys have the same?
Yeah, I don't know, for me personally, coming out of school, that was a huge tension for me, of realizing, hey, like, I fully believe God can heal this person. So why am I even being a doctor right now to help this person with adjustments? And realizing, hey, this is a gift that the Lord has given us, and this is something He wants us to be able to partner with people with too. And especially when you look at even just the main healer, like if you look at Jesus, I mean, there's many times where He healed in very different ways, from laying hands on people, from people just touching his cloak, to Him spitting in dirt and rubbing it over someone's eyes. It's all these different ways to help heal people, and having kind of the Lord work through us, and starting to realize, hey, it's not two separate things, but it's all one entity working together, and that's really what gave me a little bit more peace about what we're doing too.
Yeah, we just really feel like we're a vessel for His healing, I would think is the best way to put it. And it's really cool because I feel like a lot of people put science over here and like faith in God over here. And I mean,
never shall the two meet, right? Yeah,
For sure.
and God created science, right? So I feel like it's, in our minds, it's a very separate thing sometimes, but I feel like it's all very much one, and he's just the way he's using us to have his healing take place.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's where when I start to separate them and think them as either or,
Yeah.
that's where the tension is. But when you can see both and you're created to do something amazing, and I'm created to do something amazing in my own way. I don't know about amazing, but to do something.
It's amazing.
and so it's just, just the awareness of that like the creation of you feeds the opportunity for that, so it's really amazing. But that was one of those things I thought through as this process, especially for you with the hands-on. You guys are really experiencing that tension, not just my own.
Yeah.
Literally today, I was like praying for somebody. I was like, I wonder what they think about when they're just that phrase popped to me, and just that tension. But when did that faith come alive? I guess when were you first introduced to it? When did it become real for you? I guess.
I pretty much grew up under it, although in a lot of different avenues, very similar to how my dad was, in a sense, a little bit of a nomad all over the place, travel-wise. He also really, I don't want to say wrestled, but it was very exploring with our faith as a family, too. At one point, we were in a Catholic church. At another point, we were in, Methodist, Baptist, Church of Christ. So we went through a lot of...
weren't you?
It's an inside joke. But, he's always been on this search for truth. And so I very much grew up with faith, for sure. But I think it wasn't until I was in undergrad where the Lord really blessed me with a group of people that just really challenged me. And I think for the first time I had to really decide, what do I believe? What do my mom or dad believe, or what do my siblings believe, but what do I believe about this, and how is that going to manifest in my decisions moving forward, I guess. And so thankfully, like I said, you go to college and there's a lot of different ways that can go. And I think a lot of it is influenced by the people you surround yourself with. And I was very blessed to be surrounded by a really incredible group of people who are very strong in their faith. And so I think that was where it really became reality for me and my own.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there is that inherited faith that we a lot of times have from somebody else. And it's sort of our own, but not really until another point in time when we take it on as our own, or throw it out altogether. There's a couple options there.
For sure. Yeah, and very similar, not to the point where we jumped around from different types of religions, I'd say, but very much grew up in the church. Was very thankful to have two parents that kind of brought me into that. Grew up more in kind of the Methodist faith, and so when any type of healing or things of the Holy Spirit were brought up,
it's huge in the Methodist church.
No one really talks about that much. And so as I came into undergrad at the University of Florida, that's really when I started kind of searching for those things and understanding, hey, there's our faith in Jesus is an amazing thing, but there's so much more deeper when it comes to even incorporating the Holy Spirit too. It's like icing on top of the cake, and so that's kind of when I started journeying into just my faith a little bit more deeper as I transitioned into my undergrad and started serving more in just different types of ministries also, and exploring a little bit more of, all right, what is this faith that I believe in, and trying to understand more about that.
That's, I think most of our journey has been, my wife and me, has been kind of throwing out a lot of stuff that's been maybe poorly presented to us over the years. To make it our own. I mean, not create our own faith necessarily, but just sort of to find the truth in there versus all the extraneous stuff that was presented along with it.
And I think I look back to my childhood growing up, and I really, at the time, it was a little bit confusing. But looking back on it, I feel like that's exactly what my dad was trying to lead us in, is finding what is the truth for us. There's so many different avenues, but that's something I have always really appreciated and respected about him, is he was always searching for truth, not necessarily what is everybody else saying or doing, or should Christianity look like? But what did Jesus want it to be about?
I think for us too, it's evolved over the time. Like for certain seasons for us, what we needed. Like right now, we're at an Anglican church, which would not have never thought of it, that was on the horizon at all.
Right.
But it's so necessary in a lot of ways for where we are right now. And
cool.
The way our journey's gone, I wouldn't say we're there forever, but there's a sense of like community and connection there that has kind of led us to that point. So it's been interesting to see where things have landed and where things will go. But probably from my son's perspective, I'm the same. Like been a couple different stops along the way. He's probably like, what are we doing? Yeah. We visited probably 10 churches here. So he was like, where are we going this Sunday? What's going on?
I mean, community is so important. So it's awesome, just really what you're doing too, and just building community through just your marketing that you're doing as well. And so being able to see how you tie that into basically your why has been really cool.
I think that's been an interesting thing. I think you have the same journey of just blending faith and work. Like a lot of times there's been a desire to keep them separate. I'll keep this to myself. I'll keep it private, but I also don't want to go the other route where it's all like that's the primary message, and then you get a lot of like reactions from that. So it's finding that proper balance of blending it together, for it's the right balance for me, and then where I feel comfortable. I'll have no problem talking to people directly, but sometimes when you put it out in a digital form, it has a different take, and people deal with that a little differently. So, but it's been an evolution over time of figuring out what that means. I think for me, for a while, it was just, that's my own thing. I'm not going to tell anybody. But then eventually things happen in life, and it's like, no, this is a part of me I have to tell, because it's just part of who I am. Last couple questions. Just family. You talked a lot about family. Just you two. First of all, it's interesting you guys call each other Dr. Josh and Dr. Taylor. Do you do that at home too, or is
we
that
don't.
just?
We try not to. We do it in the office.
Yeah. So it's just
at
hard
home
to.
We don't. Yeah.
How do you separate? That's an interesting thing too. Like, how do you are there, I don't know, practices, rituals that you do when you get home to sort of take your chiropractic mind off and be able to just sort of be husband, wife,
it's
father,
hard.
mother?
We're still learning.
In this season, it's hard. We're definitely getting better. In the beginning, it was all office all the time, We're definitely getting better with that and finding things that are, sometimes we just have to say, okay, for 2 hours, we're not talking about the office and we're going to a coffee shop.
You've really pounded on the table. You're so passionate about that.
But sometimes we just have to be very intentional about it, because it's just something we're there all day together with each other, and we get excited about it. We love it. And so we love talking about it, but it can become consuming for sure. Yeah.
Well, my wife and I are the same way. We have both been in marketing for so long that we're constantly like, go out for coffee and it's like, so tell me more about this campaign that I wanted to do. What are your thoughts on this? And like, oh wait, we should not. And sometimes it's harder to get to that path. You can eventually get there, but it's again, we love it. So it's not like we're trudging through stuff we don't want to talk about. It's stuff we love and are passionate about, and we're trying to make each other better. So there's a lot of justifications to do that, but then there's a lot of reasons to not do that too. So
I think just again, we have to be very intentional and just protect that time that we set aside, and a lot of times it's more quality over quantity, for sure. But making sure we are intentional about weekly setting aside some time that we really focus in on our marriage and on our family has been really, really good for us.
How is it working together? Is that as an easy transition? Was it a struggle? I mean, sort of, I don't know, you've kind of seen each other in a couple different phases of your relationship. How's that been going? I don't know how quite to ask that question. But.
No, that's a great question. I mean, it's constantly evolving, and so we've learned so much from when we first started opening and to where we are now, to where we're really finding really what our main gifts are also when it comes to the practice, and so. Obviously, it has its little challenges. We're both doctors. We're both kind of more like the authority in the practice, and so learning like kind of where our main roles are. And in the beginning, I was like, I'm gonna be in charge of all the finances, just because that's what the man's supposed to do, right? And so I ended up being terrible at it, and it stressed my wife out so much to the point where I realized, hey, I need to just hand this over to her. And so really finding like, all right, she's very passionate about it. She's really good at that. I'm more of the visionary and the mission focused aspect of the practice. And when I need something to really get done, my wife is phenomenal at that.
For
She's
sure, yeah.
checklist on checklist. And so really figuring out, all right, what are our main gifts and strong suits when it comes to the practice, and figuring out really where we're weak at. And thankfully, very thankfully, we're very opposite when it comes to those things. And so we're able to really partner together well with that.
Yeah. I think it's been, amazing just in general. He's my best friend. We love being in practice every day together. We're doing something we love together, which is so cool. And I think it's an awesome opportunity that not a lot of people get to do. Like you said, there's definitely challenges, and we've had to learn how to work well together for sure, and how to lead a team well together, which is challenging too, because sometimes there's things that he may be talking about or leading the team in that I don't agree with. But just learning the best way to communicate that and have mutual respect for each other. And maybe come to an agreement when we aren't necessarily on the same page is something that we're still fine-tuning, but we've grown so much through it, and it's cool. And I think it's also really made our marriage better too, which I'm thankful for, because a lot of times it doesn't go that way.
For sure, yeah, I think for us, a lot of therapy and counseling were probably good for us, because probably more for me than her, but I needed to release a few things. You talked about the finances. Like I had a lot of that pride of just, I've got my own way, let me just do it this way. Even though we didn't work together on a business, there were a lot of times I would ask her for information, and of course I didn't really want her honest feedback. I wanted her to tell me how awesome it was, and then she'd come back with the honest feedback. I go, wait a minute, that's really destructive. So but learning, she's great at certain things that I'll never be great at, and vice versa, and we found a good balance there. But man, it took almost 20 years to kind of figure that out. We actually now can I have a business idea that we want to pursue maybe in a couple of years, but I can see that possibly working now, whereas 5 years ago, 10 years ago, there's no way it would have we just didn't know how to communicate or work together well.
That's awesome.
But it's been good that we've evolved as people, I think. But you're the visionary person. What's sort of next? What's on the horizon for True North?
We got big plans, and so we're in our physical location for really the next 5.5 years, and so biggest thing is now to kind of expand, whether that's a bigger location here in the Springs, and adding other kind of tenants in, having our own complex, or creating multiple True North offices throughout the Springs or throughout the United States as well too. And so all are different ideas that we have. We're still kind of brainstorming really what we foresee True North to become too, but really our main focus is outgrowing our place that we're in now, having to build a bigger location here in the Springs, and being able to just serve people more excellently with that too, and bring more doctors on as well. We're currently looking for that too, and so it's exciting to see just the little steps that are coming together for that.
It's pretty cool though. Recently we looked back at our business plan that we presented to the banks, just like all green and nervous please give us a lot of money right now, and we have nothing to our names, and it's cool looking back on that and the projections that we set, and we had to set out a 5-year plan and tell them where we were going to be in 5 years and after our first year, second year, and just to see us hit those but actually go beyond that, and knowing hey, when we put these on paper, these were just our big dream, right? And to see it after a couple of years starting to happen and hitting all those goals that we had back then was super cool and really encouraging.
What do you attribute some of the success to? You can put it on paper and put it in a plan, but then things have to work well, things have to happen. What would you look back and say, it's probably because of these reasons?
A lot of practice and a lot of great mentorship. And mostly everything that we did in our practice, from building it to getting the clientele before we even opened our practice, it was all that we did before we even moved out here. And so we collectively really flew across the United States and helped open up about, 12 offices?
14 offices. As students.
And so we were able to help just with a lot of other, honestly, chiropractors helping open up their practices and understanding, all right, this is what to do, this is what not to do. And
willing to take a risk on you.
Absolutely. And so seeing a lot of that and always taking notes, always learning and figuring out, all right, how can we make this better?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what helped us to create what we wanted to, but then also see, hey, I think we can actually do things even better. And obviously, as we've gone through the process, we realized, hey, we could have done even better with these other things, and now we're incorporating those.
Yeah.
And our mentors, I mean, we've got some really, really solid mentors that, we kind of looked at what kind of practice do we want to have, but what kind of family life do we want to have as well? Because we see a lot of people are successful in one or the other, but not both. And which was something we were very set on from the beginning. We didn't want to sacrifice our family for the sake of the office. But we felt like they could both be very successful if we did it the right way. So just finding mentors that were doing it and having the practice we wanted, but also the family life we wanted, was really, really powerful for us in the beginning. So we have some awesome mentors that we check in with pretty periodically. We jump on calls with. We text back and forth all the time, and are constantly just bouncing ideas off of. And so that was a huge catapult for us in the beginning opening, but also just as we're progressing forward with our office right now.
Do they help kind of keep you accountable too, to sort of how things are going with your marriage and those types of things as well? Or do you have other resources like that? Because I think that's sometimes where everything can look awesome from our perspective sometimes, and somebody else can provide another light on that and go, pay attention to this too.
Yeah, we do, and that's cool. And sometimes, they're not always the same. We've got some chiropractors as mentors. We have some, people of faith in our life too. And so it's cool to have different dynamics speaking into you and speaking into your life and getting different perspectives.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for the time. Like I said, I've really enjoyed following you guys on social media. I've learned so much. I've already got I've got a list of my own things that I want to go in and get corrected, to be honest with you, that I had no idea that you guys even worked on until our conversation and just a little bit of research on my end. I was like, okay, these would be how I'd go to. So I'll definitely be in there at some point as a patient, but I've enjoyed following online, and thanks again so much for sharing your story today. I really appreciated it.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah, awesome.
You've been listening to Metaphorically Speaking. If you've enjoyed this episode, please rate us on iTunes and subscribe on your favorite podcast app. For more information and to check out our full library of entrepreneurial interviews, visit keyholemarketing.us. Also, feel free to send us an email anytime at hi@keyholemarketing.us. Thank you for listening.